We're here to solve a Slitherlink by Michael Tang called Columns, and you might not expect a 9x9 puzzle to be a Friday level difficulty, but a few reasons in the Slitherlink it is that hard. First is there are no zeros in general as clues, and where all the clues are actually only orthogonally adjacent, not diagonally adjacent. Zeros are the most useful clue in that context. The threes are the only other clue that has some communication can do, and these two threes together and these two threes together put in these lines. And some people forget they also put in these x's. So this is a way to start. But that sense that we only have orthogonal adjacency, not diagonally adjacency, means we're not running into many common patterns. We're going to have to be thinking about some other constraints of the loop as we go through. Some fun things I saw didn't actually make a difference, but you can mark off this edge like between the 1-1s because this middle not being used, you can't come all the way through this channel. This diagonal that marks off this 3-1 though is I think the more key thing to see. Every dot around a 3 clue gets used. You may have, one of these edges not involved, but we have to touch to this dot, which means we do take either this top or right side and have an edge coming up here and a set of ways that 3 completes, but it always takes this pattern. And this is where it sets up what I'll call the learning moment of this puzzle. This is not a pattern probably people have seen before, but it's a kind of way when you think of the constraints in the grid. You've set up a situation where you've got this limited 2 that has 3 options for it, but in some cases it has a forced option. Like if I came along the side, I immediately go out. And more constrained than that is this limited to near a 3, which is already a pretty full clue. And a few ways you can actually see what you need to see here, but really looking at this 2-3 pattern with an unmarked edge is maybe what this puzzle is trying to teach us. It has 3 fully forced ways it can go because of how this 2 is limited. If I don't take this edge, it's exactly this pattern for a 2 with a wrapped 3. If it doesn't take this edge, it's basically the mirror of that. And if it doesn't take this edge, it's just the 3 wrapping all those this way. And you may not have caught it across those, but none of those allow you to come in through these middle edges. And so the tension in this puzzle is about coming from this side of the 2, the only 2 that uses this edge, into the cell, and saying, how do I simultaneously get 3 around this and 2 around this, where what this does is says I have an unused edge here or here and an unused edge here or here. And so this has to simultaneously take, an edge to make this work. If it takes this edge, this is now a 1. If it takes this edge, this is at most a 1. We never get up to 2. If we did get up to 2, we're not making this into a 3. There's a parity issue here. And so you may not know that common pattern, but just to see that because this 2 is itself now down to 1 unused edge, very limiting, that it has this pattern, this pattern, this pattern. And in all those cases, it doesn't use these. This is a kind of thing to observe about the puzzle as a constructor that can let you figure out how to then use it when you write a puzzle later on. So I think that might have been what Michael was intending. It could be something else, but that was certainly how I got into the grid. I marked off that edge, and I'm marking off that edge. I can force this 2 pattern, puts in this 3. I can't take this edge. I can take either the right or bottom of this 2, but I always take the top. That top now communicates over and finishes this 3-3 set. Finish this 1 pattern, can't come and take this edge, so this 2 has to come like so. Marking off this 1 now marks off this edge, so this 1 has to come in this way. These don't close off, so this 1 comes across the top. This 2 comes down here, makes this happen. 1 get marks in this space. And we're now back to a pattern we had over here, which is a 2-3 with an unmarked top edge. And so another thing now consider at this stage of the puzzle is we have these 2 loop ends, and they don't want to close on themselves. So we do need to get a loop end across sort of around here and a loop end sort of around here. One thing to note about those 2 patterns, this pattern for this group has the 2 ends on the right, so they're not crossing over. This pattern that's the mirror has 2 loop ends on the left, they're not crossing over. We really need to get one end to the left and one end to the right. And the thing we absolutely can't do is come down this edge of the grid. That is, these loop ends keep chasing each other. They're going to get trapped. And so the first step I saw in this pattern was to see I have to take this loop end coming over. And the second was to recognize across those 2-3 patterns, the only one that works for parity across the center column is this one, because it leaves one end to the right, one end to the left. And so again, it's thinking about this x2-3 that was set up over here, just sort of taking it to its natural conclusion. So once you recognize it's the thing, you can always keep visualizing, mark stuff like that off. In this case, you've got one end to the left, one end to the right. That now means around this 2, we can't take this edge, so this comes over. Around this 1, we have to take the top or right. We've now also built a corner 2 around this dot, so this 2 will take either left top or right bottom, but these ends have to come out from it. This end now is the one that forces into the puzzle and makes good progress there. Closes off these ends around this 1, closes off these ends around this 1, which completes this 3, connects over into this 3. This 2 is also now forced. 2 ends in this little isolated bit, so we don't want to put a third end in, so this end has to come up and these just have to do quick cornering. This one has just these edges to take. That puts this around this 3, and now this end is isolated, so it has to come straight down. We don't want to close off the loop too soon, so this has to go like so. And these last ends, and we're through this puzzle. So certainly a tricky grid. Say the absence of zeros and the absence of diagonally adjacent clues made it remove most of the common patterns of communication you're used to. But looking around, once you have this x and this x, looking around this 2, 3, which is a fairly limited set, and seeing that you have an issue taking these ends to make it work out was the way I got the loop to be set in this corner. And from that stemmed to the rest of the grid, including another instance of this 2, 3 pattern playing out on the lower right side. So hopefully you got something from your struggles with this puzzle. If not, it's definitely, as a Slitherlink without common patterns, it's pushing the difficulty. And what I think is a good way, it at least has you consider loop parity and loop constraints and other things together, and that the basic Slitherlink rules can hide a whole set of new deductions. This is at least a puzzle that has some new deductions to find if you have the patience to look for them. So thanks for listening to this video, and we'll see you again soon.